world produces 2 billion tons of waste, and the pile is still growing. By 2050, that could be 4 billion tons. So how do we begin to turn things around? Is recycling enough, or do we need to rethink waste altogether? To explore this, I'm joined by Dr. Irmak Karakislak from UNU-EHS and a lead author of the Interconnected Disaster Risk Report, which dives into this case of waste. So my first question to you, Irmak, is what does this waste crisis really look like today, whether we're talking about food waste, e-waste, or clothing?
We can start by exploring what waste means. So waste would be products or byproducts or materials that are thrown away either after consumption or production. So this would be food waste, scraps of food. It could be packaging, plastics, materials like metals, glass, and electronic waste. The scale of the problem is enormous, and some of those waste streams are increasing and growing much faster than others. And one of those very concerning one is electronic waste. So it's currently one of the fastest growing solid waste stream in the world, which means that we are discarding electronics that are in a very, very fast rate even before they arrive to the technical end of their life.
And what is sort of the cost of this? I mean, we see the environmental impacts daily, but can you sum up sort of the impacts and the consequences of this crisis?
If you look at the costs, it is also a very depressing picture. In 2020, the direct costs of global waste management was calculated over 250 billion US dollars. This means that the governments and cities paid for collecting, transporting, and dealing and treating that waste. But there are, on the other side, a lot of hidden costs of waste, like the environment and human impacts of our health. So when those are factored in the calculation, the numbers grow up to 360 billion US dollars. So initially, waste is a very expensive global pollution problem.
Wow, that's a big number. So then what's kind of behind this? Why are we so reliant on a system that's bent on producing and discarding items so regularly, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Our current global economy still follows this linear model. This means that we're extracting resources, we're making a product, using that product, and then throwing it away. This is often also called take, make, waste model. And in this way, we are really not using the materials as they are meant to be. And these are because of the deep assumptions about the earth and the capacity of the earth, basically, that we think that there's endless and limitless resources and that the earth can absorb all the waste that we produce. And we know that these are not true.
Okay. And so this scale of this problem seems honestly quite overwhelming. So how can we actually begin to turn things around and change these systems?
We need to start rethink how we understand waste, what we understand from it. If we look at nature, there's no such a thing as waste. Everything becomes something else for another resource. So if leaves fall from the tree, they will decompose and become nutrients for new growth. So we can also design our economies in the same way, in the same mindset of what this is called a closed loop system. So we can also have this loop and circular system where we keep materials in the circulation as much as possible, so we don't directly trash them and have this circular thinking and design.
Okay, and I want to get to the Interconnected Disaster Risk Report. So the report actually dives into the waste, and you guys were looking at some examples. Can you tell us about some of the examples that you found, or any other examples out there where we're starting to see sort of changes already at play?
Mm-hmm. In our interconnected disaster report, we looked at the waste of case through the theory of deep change, and this is basically a transformation framework that helps us to look at these two different levels, like you mentioned. And one of those levels is inner levels. This is a very deep mindset, assumptions, values that we have about the world and how the systems that we live in. And if we think about waste, this would be basically, if we want to change things, this will be moving away from the idea that resources are endless and that Earth will just give us what we want whenever we want, to the idea that we have boundaries of our planet. If we think about the second level, which is the outer levers, and those are more policy and systemic changes, mechanism changes that needs to support this type of thinking, this inner thinking. And these will be, if we think about waste, and if you think about electronic waste, it will be designing products, like electronic products, that would last longer or can be repaired, for example. So we can use a lot of reuse and repair or refurbish a lot of the materials we already have in our production.
Cool. So I see that this sort of framework is there's the inner levers, which seem to be about the individuals, and then outer levels, which is more structured and policy, and together they work hand in hand. I want to stay on the outer levers for a second. Are there any positive examples? Are cities, governments, or initiatives out there that sort of represent the outer lever here?
Yeah, definitely. There are certain examples. On the outer lever, there needs a lot of change. So we need to reform a lot of things in this production system. And one very nice example is the European Union's new law that they introduced to have a common USB-C charging standard. This means that this will be only one cable for a different type of smart devices, like your phone or your tablet. So you will, instead of having 10 for your different products, you will have one. And this will significantly reduce electronic waste.
Oh, super cool. I've definitely heard of this one, but I think many people maybe not understand that just simply changing a chord and mainstreaming a certain chord can make an impact. There was another example that I saw in the report that was, I think, a town in Japan, Kamikatsu. Could you tell us a little about what they're doing and how that might be also a good example for broader changes in communities or cities?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is a very interesting example that we found in our latest report, and this is a very bottom-up process. So it's a community in Japan called Kamikatsu. It's a small town. They have been working towards becoming zero-waste town since 2003, and the residents there are separating their waste into 45 different categories. From those categories, some of those materials are reused, some of them are recycled. The recycling rate of the town is, I believe, around 80%, which is almost 4 times the average of the country of Japan. Wow. So they are doing a lot of exchanging of clothes. They're upcycling textiles. So this is a very hands-on, real community that is trying to reduce their own waste.
Well, that's really impressive. If you're watching, please go check out Kamikatsu. And my final question, going back to sort of the inner levers, I think for individuals out there, it seems like it might be a bit daunting to see what you can actually do or where to start to contribute to sort of bettering or turning around this problem. But what are some genuine practices that individuals out there can do to also sort of start to turn this crisis around?
Mm-hmm. It's understandable that it feels very difficult to make that changes. We can start by changing the way how we relate to things that we own already. So when objects carry a memory, we tend to look at them differently. So if you think about a coffee cup that you were gifted by someone you care about, or your favorite sweater, or a toy that you've been keeping since your childhood, you care about those and you tend to repair them, want to maintain them. We want to use them for such a long time. So we can try to think about other items in our life that we use on a day-to-day basis in that similar way. Instead of throwing away your old pair of jeans, maybe why not try repairing it? Why not go and buy secondhand? Why not change, swap clothes with your friends? There's also a lot of cities around the world right now that offer sharing opportunities instead of individually owning things. You could also share things like a car or a bike or even the tools that you might use around the house. So individual choices really matter, and with those choices we can really build a culture that is moving away from this disposability to a culture where we care for the things that we have.
Well, okay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for explaining this crisis, diving into it with us today, and hopefully people watching can feel a bit inspired and hopeful that there's ways they can contribute. If you want to watch more science talks, please subscribe or like or comment. With that, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Irmak.